In this video, we're gonna find out if the new plant-based documentary, The Game Changers, is actually a game changer, or if it's the same old, same old. Coming up. If this is the first time we're meeting, my name is Ryan, and this is Alternative Reality. On this channel, I do plant-based cooking segments, DIY green projects, and green reviews just like this one. So if you're new here, consider subscribing and click the bell so you don't miss anything. Let's get into this review. So The Game Changers came out last Monday, and I had the pleasure of going with my wife to see the premiere. It was a one-night event. I'm not sure how exactly it's going to be executed and bringing it to everybody else, but probably Netflix, Hulu, that type of thing. When that happens, I'll update on my social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But I want to give you my opinion of what I thought about this documentary. It's produced by James Cameron, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jackie Chan, and a slew of others, but those are the big three names that are on all the advertising. I've been seeing information about this movie for so long, it's been hyped up so much that I was worried that the movie wouldn't live up to the hype. When I saw the official trailer like 2 months ago, it got me so jacked that I started eating a whole food plant-based diet and I started working out again. And I'm actually seeing gains that I want to see. I feel great. So all you people thinking this is just propaganda, time for a reality check. So from this point on, I want to throw out spoiler alert. I am not going to hold back on anything. And if you want to see this movie without any spoilers, stop it now, but make sure that you do see the movie. So the message in this movie and through all of its marketing is that real men eat meat, is this marketing strategy that we've been living with our entire lives, and it's just not true. It is meat and dairy are part of industries where people are making mass amounts of money, so they don't want you to know the truth. That's why there's all this misinformation that What the Health really touched on. That was another documentary that came out a few years back, and when that movie came out, it made a big impact. And I think The Game Changers, their angle and approach with their documentary is going to make the same type of impact. It seems like it's really targeted towards young males, which I think is a good thing, but really everybody needs to see this movie. So the movie starts off with the narrator, James Wilks. And James Wilks is he was an MMA fighter that retired and is training special forces and military on how to disarm and different combat techniques. He gets a serious injury and injures both of his legs and is in a 6-month recovery, and he's trying to figure out how to recover faster because he can't stand not being there, not being active, not fighting. So he starts researching recovery and finds a slew of information on plant-based recovery. Also finds a study about the Roman gladiators, how these different anthropologists were testing the bone density of these gladiators and found out that they were predominantly vegetarian. And it blew his mind. Like, how could these fighters, these strong dudes, be vegetarian? It goes against everything that we're taught. So he starts on a journey and he finds real world athletes that are plant-based and all these people that are breaking world records, including Patrik Baboumian, who broke a Guinness World Record as a strongman. Nimai Delgado, who's a bodybuilder that's had no meat in his entire life, but once he went vegan and then cut out the dairy, he got huge gains. Kendrick Farris, Scott Jurek, and Dotsie Bausch. I think that's how you pronounce her name. At the age of 39, she won a gold medal in track cycling. She's from Tennessee, I believe, and raised on barbecue and meat. And there's a quote from her that she said when she went plant-based, she didn't know if she would survive. So really, that mindset of meat, you need it. And she cut out the meat, she cut out the dairy, and became a machine and won a gold medal at the age of 39. That's ridiculous. And also, I believe it was 13 of the NFL players on the Tennessee Titans all went plant-based, and seeing that whole aspect was really cool. Plus the one dude's wife is a chef, and seeing some of the food she was making was like a-okay in my book. I wish I could have sat and had some dinners with those guys. And they talk about how they had one of their best seasons with 13 or 14 guys on plant-based diets. The way the documentary goes, each of their stories are kind of like chopped up, and it really helps hold the attention of the modern mindset. So you have all the social media, very quick fire information. This documentary is built like that, where if you go back to Forks Over Knives, something like that, the long format, it might not hold people's attention nowadays. So this is a really good documentary as a reference to get people into checking out these documentaries and maybe considering going plant-based. In between each of their stories, there's very clean animations, and that breaks down the science. Really, it's just a really good way of approaching it. There's not too much like crammed in their information, but enough to get people thinking about these concepts, and they really hit the head on a lot of the main concerns with veganism, like soy. Soy has estrogen, right? There's a myth around soy, which is a great source of protein and a great alternative to meat. But the myth is that it contains estrogen and it's going to cause issues in your body. And it spikes in estrogen, especially for males. So males are afraid of tofu or afraid of soy products. Well, it's a myth. There are phytoestrogens inside of soy, and phytoestrogens attach to your estrogen receptors and help regulate estrogen inside of your body. So they touch on that. They touch on the protein myth. It's a big one. The protein myth that you need all this protein to like bulk up. And even Arnold talks about this and how he needed this specific amount of protein because he weighed this amount, and it's just not true. It has been proven that you can intake less protein, and you actually need carbohydrates to help assimilate the proteins in your body. They touch on the fact that the only thing that our brain eats is carbohydrates. We need carbs for our brain to function properly. Who cares about your bodily gains if your brain, most important part, isn't working? But they really talk about the endophilia, your stomach, your gut biome, circulation in general, all those types of things. And they hit on it in very specific ways, talking about your heart. And John Wilks' father had a heart bypass. They follow his story also. It's not just about athletes. And they also follow a whole storyline with the New York Fire Department and their cholesterol levels. And that is phenomenal too. They go on these plant-based diets. They bring all this food into the firehouse and get these guys eating a healthy plant-based diet, and all their cholesterols just drop. They plummet. And I mean, some of the guys, like the one guy is talking about how he goes to the gym and tries to stay fit, but his cholesterol is just going up. The one thing I really liked about this documentary is it's not like an all or nothing approach. Anything that you can do to limit the amount of animal proteins that you consume is going to help your body and help the environment and all that. There's a whole spiel at the end for the premiere. I don't know if there's going to be access to that for everybody, but it's like deleted scenes and James Cameron talking on a more personal note. And he talks about like the ripple effect that it has if you start to change your thinking, then it transfers to the next person, to the next person, to the next person. And that's why there's such a big change. There were whole sections on Paleolithic eating and how the paleo diet is actually misinformed. You go back and look at the remains of humans long ago and prove that there's a lot more plants, fruits, seeds, nuts, all those types of things in our diet than paleo diet wants you to believe. Meat would have been not a very common occurrence in our diet, and we would have gotten more like insects and stuff like that in our diet. There are quite a few doctors that also ring in and talk about their specialties. You have Dr. Esselstyn, Dean Ornish, Dr. Spitz, and quite a few others that talk about these studies that kind of break down the information for you. There's a whole segment in there with a few of the NFL players, and they do centrifuge blood tests So what they do is they'll pull blood right after, I think there were 3 of them, and 2 of them, one ate beef, one ate chicken in a burrito. Lots of burritos in this movie. The one guy was vegetarian or vegan already. So they drew their blood right after they had eaten this meal, like an hour after they ate this meal, and did a centrifuge test. And then the next day they gave them all vegan and took their blood and did the centrifuge test. And if you ate, or the guys that ate the meat prior to the blood test had very cloudy blood because the fats and the proteins in the blood clouded up the blood. So it shows that immediately after a meal, this is going through your bloodstream, and that's why you get arterial plaques and all those things running through your heart, running through your brain, running through your... And there's a whole segment on that too. Erectile dysfunction, any part of your body that if blood flow is blocked, those parts of your bodies don't work. So your brain, your penis, your heart, your arms, everything, your whole body. Circulation is key, and animal proteins hurt the circulation in your body. It's as simple as that. I loved how humorous this documentary was. There were lots of little comical things strewn throughout, so it's not just information the whole time. It breaks it up and makes it really approachable. And then there's a segment on B12 and talking about how B12 is even supplemented into animals nowadays, because that was the only source to get B12 unless you ate dirty produce because it comes from the soil. So they do a whole thing on that even animals have to be supplemented in with B12 because of all the pesticides and things that kill the bacteria in their food. So kind of showing that a lot of people are like, oh, you have to supplement because you're plant-based, but even meat eaters are supplementing through the animals themselves. I recommend The Game Changers to anyone. It is a phenomenal movie. It's great. There were a few points where I feel like a little more comedy would have been greatly appreciated, and the chopped up nature of it isn't as much of what I personally like, but it will keep the attention of the modern mindset. So I think it was a great approach, and it's a really good documentary, and I think it's really going to make a huge impact, and I'm so excited for all of you guys to see it. So as soon as I know how you guys can see it, I'll give you that information, and if you've already seen it, let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. Until next time, keep it green, and I'll see you in the next video. Everybody needs to see this movie. There's so much information in here, so much truth in the information that everybody needs to see it. Whether you are diabetic, you have circulation issues, heart issues, any health issues, you should see this movie. If you're athletic, if you're lifting weights, if you're sedentary, if you're overweight, you should see this movie too. This concept, the concepts that they talk about, can help anybody.